Добрый день, дорогие друзья. Приветствуем вас на
Good afternoon, colleagues. We welcome you at this year's presentation of the Environmental Transparency Rating of Oil and Gas Companies. So this year's edition is taking place in an unusual online format, but we believe that we have all the speakers, all the presentations to make sure that our insights and conclusions will be made as we usually do it. And we present the rating of Russian companies and also Eurasian companies, Kazakhstan companies, and other companies from Eurasia. I'm sure you had a look at today's agenda. So we will do a wrap-up of the ranking in the first part, and then I hope we can spend more time to discuss the Eurasian context. We'll discuss the energy transition concept. We have exciting speakers both from the EU and those who represent Russian companies. So we really hope to get some feedback and input from you. This is why we have an open opportunity to share comments. Those who are watching us on social media or via broadcast on TASS, you can share your comments and questions in Facebook, and our team will deliver them to us. And that applies to accredited media professionals too. We will put together all of the comments and questions from you, and we'll turn them over to our speakers. So that's it with housekeeping rules, and we're moving over to our agenda. Welcome remarks. First of all, to Yekaterina Khmeleva, Director of Green Economy and Governance, WWF-Russia. Thank you so much, Alexei. I welcome everyone here today, those who found time to take part in the conference. So we're not offline. This year we are online, and perhaps there's a silver lining to it. We have a wider audience today. This year marks the 7th edition of our rating of oil and gas companies. So it means that this brainchild of ours has grown up. It's now joined school. And again, as Alexei said, we will talk about Russian companies and also Eurasian companies. So we believe this is an important event. We are expanding. It's very important for Central Asia. A couple of words on the circumstances that we had to work under and putting together our rating results. Definitely that had an impact on the outcomes. I don't need to remind you of the COVID pandemic. You're all aware of it. This year witnessed some major failures and catastrophes, including oil spills, not just in the oil and gas sector. However, these consequences led to some amendments to our legislation. Finally, the law was passed, and companies now face certain responsibilities. So the next issue is another bill, a bill that I hope will be signed into law in December. And again, that's environmentally relevant information that has to do with our rating. We're a public interest organization. We protect the interests of the environment and our people. This is why we need to have access to open information. It needs to be accessible and transparent. And timely. These disclosures need to be timely, and that applies to our day-to-day contact, interaction with the companies, and that applies to situations when we're dealing with oil spills, for example. And the third major driver is the so-called regulatory guillotine that we have introduced in Russia, and that had an impact on the performance of oil and gas companies this year. And that definitely had an impact on the scores and places of these companies in the rating. So we believe that our public efforts, our campaign, have helped to open up the oil and gas sector to make it more transparent. So the oil and gas is the pioneering sector, but right now we are working with other sectors too. And companies have been pushed to change their policies, and they now draft and approve their environmental policies to preserve rare species. And these documents are placed on their websites and made transparent, and that sets a new trend in the industry that helps to change the standards in the industry and raise awareness. I would like to thank all of our teams and the National Rating Agency, all the stakeholders, our standing partner Creon, and the UN Environment Program, and all of the representatives of the oil and gas sector. We'll hope to continue working with you on improving environmental transparency of this sector. Thank you. Thank you. Indeed, this rating was born in Russia, but it's gone beyond the Russian borders. It's now an international rating. We're really happy to see that there are a lot of international partners that get on board, and EU representatives have taken part in our rating for several years now. And I would like to give the floor to Deputy Head of EU Delegation to Russia, Aleshka Simkic. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I will speak English. I'll try to speak slowly also for the interpreters. It's so good to be here. I would like to give some welcoming words because we see this transparency rating exercise as an important part of the entire climate politics that we as the European Union has, and we particularly as the European Union delegation here in Russia are constantly following very much up to. We are happy to be the partner with you in this project, a very important one, and I'll be very much with interest listening to the presentation in the next session. Allow me just a couple of words why the European Union or the delegation is so strong on that. When you hear the words Green Deal, European Green Deal, or when you hear the words climate in Europe, you immediately think of the Green Deal. It was not an easy task to bring it together, to commit all 27 states to agree to the climate neutrality by 2050, but it happened. And I think one of the important things in this particular Green Deal is that it's not only one actor, it's not only the governments, it's of course governments, companies represented here, as well as civil society actors. And that's why we are looking at all three aspects of this when we are doing our activities. Of course, this initiative from the WWF is not something that started with the European Green Deal. It's actually much older. I understand it's already 7 years that you are looking at this transparency there. But it somehow by coincidence comes one day, this presentation comes one day after we had the big EU-Russia climate conference. With Skolkovo together. Maybe many of you have been there and listened to that, so I will definitely not go into great detail of what was discussed there in many sessions. But if you have a chance to look at it, I would very much welcome it because a number of EU policies have been described there. As I said, it was a challenge to set this kind of ambitious goal for the European Union, for the European Green Deal to be climate neutral. But there are two particular elements why we know that we have to do it. It's not only European Union, also Russia and the entire world has to think about it. First one is exactly what has been mentioned by Ekaterina earlier, all the floods, all the natural disasters, permafrost melting that we see around, wildfires, etc. And second is ever increasing popular demand. It's the people in all of our countries that actually ask for it. They want cleaner products. They want protection of environment. And it's not only the young generation, but it's actually everybody that is now getting more and more aware that this is required and needed and wants to be done. So that's why we all have responsibility, the governments, policymakers, business community, and the civil society. One important thing for the companies, as we see through this project, is the whole corporate reporting that does embrace environmental risks in company strategy, because this gives somehow the investors confidence to the company, because especially when you look at the European Union investors now, they will more and more look not only in Russia but in all third countries as well as within European Union about how the companies they are investing in are following the environmental requirements. So that's one thing. To just go on to WWF, as I said, there is a companies part, which I look forward to hearing. There is a civil society part, and with WWF, we have a very good project where we are actually empowering the civil society in monitoring what the companies, the environmental degradation, and to see the working methods on how the civil society and industry can actually discuss constructively how to improve the climate projection. And the very last comment, because this is a welcoming remarks, I understand the more important part is coming later, is that I value very much this initiative and the voluntary commitment, or we value this, and the voluntary commitment of the companies. But one cannot forget this first part that I mentioned, the public authorities. They will have a key role. Policy making is a key role in decision making. Russia is one of a few big global players that has not committed to climate neutrality. You know, also China has recently committed to climate neutrality by 2060. So we look forward that Russia will decide that soon as well, and we are ready to cooperate with Russia on that. And with this, I wish you a very successful event. It's a great pleasure to be part of it, and look forward to hearing to the presentation.
Спасибо, Олег. Мы движемся дальше и
Thank you so much. Moving forward, Vladimir Mashkala, head of the UN Environment Program, Russia office. So he's been with us since day one, since year one. We've received support. And, you know, we launched the same initiative in Kazakhstan. Thank you, Alexei. Friends, colleagues, good afternoon. The UN Environment Program supports the initiative on environmental transparency rating of oil and gas companies. Yes, indeed, we have supported you since year one. So we are now in 2020. It's been an unusual year. It started off to a bad start. Many regions of the world witnessed floods, storms, forest fires, and then the pandemic broke out. So whatever is happening around us has proven again that our environment is very fragile, and human beings need to know how to act going forward. We need a rethink of our usual way of life. As part of the UN, since 2015, we've been moving towards SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So 5 years on, a lot of progress has been made. Russia has made a voluntary assessment of its SDG progress, and it submitted its report. But so far it's unclear whether we have achieved those goals or not. So I call on all the programs, on all the international organizations and all the citizens and countries to move towards those programs. And the UN General Assembly announced the next decade as the 10 years when we should intensify our efforts to move towards SDGs. And, there is the FAO, the Food Security Organization, there is the WHO, and we agreed to coordinate our efforts. And we believe that it will also be a decade to restore our ecosystems, our natural ecosystems. We need to rethink our attitude to our environment. We need to understand what the green economy is and how to implement the new approach. We need to change the mentality of the people, the mentality of ourselves. Now, as we said, there was a big number of different catastrophes, man-made disasters. This is why we need to think about an early warning system, maybe something like a prevention program. But let's not focus on the negatives. The world is changing, it's evolving. We need to think forward. So I call on everyone to take their time and effort to take part in the efforts to achieve SDGs. There are only 10 years left, 10 short years, and these 10 years should also be spent on restoring natural ecosystems. I sincerely wish you success and all the best. Thank you. Thank you, Vladimir. And we'll also have some newcomers joining our ceremony. We'll also have the representative of a very important organization. It's the public chamber or the civic chamber of the Russian Federation. And I'd like to give the floor to Yelena Sharoykina, the chair of the Commission on Ecology and Environmental Protection. Colleagues, I'm really happy to join you. When I first heard of the name of the rating, Rational Approach, I was really surprised. I thought it was a bit too straight and blunt. But then I realized, yes, indeed, it's about common sense. It's about sustainable, rational approach. Indeed, resources and natural resources are important to bring revenue to the governments, but we should also think of the next generation. This is what this rational approach is all about. So I'm happy to be part of this ceremony. Despite the pandemic, you have not cancelled this conference. You're relying on a new format, a new technology. What I heard today, in terms of streamlining our legislation, in terms of the UN strategy on SDGs, I fully subscribe to it. Whatever could be done to improve the situation through the public or civic chamber could be done. We are happy to join. We're happy to work with you. We can take part in the so-called zero reading or pre-reading of certain bills, and actually the public chamber is a unique instrument. Not all countries have it. It's a independent platform that can give the voice to the business community. It's like an intermediary between the governments, the public, and the corporate sector. Once again, we're happy to be part of this initiative. We are happy to share this rational approach. Thank you so much for your invitation. Yes, we'll definitely need to ramp up cooperation with the chamber and give the floor to the second parent of this project, of this brainchild, Chairman of the Board of Directors, Creon Group, Fares Kilzlev. Over to you for your final remarks. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really proud of every member of our rating. 7 years is a pretty long time, and we've put a lot of efforts into it. we've had a lot of debates. I'd like to remind you that this rating that was conceived by three partners is a Russian-made product. And I will continue to reiterate that this is a unique product. No other country in the world has such a product. The product has evolved. It's now moved beyond the Russian borders. We welcome the support of everyone, of international players who share the goals of the project. And we definitely need to praise the participants from the oil and gas sector. There have been huge positive changes in the oil and gas sector in the past 7 years. Our oil and gas companies embrace the changes and the decisions that are taken in the West concerning the Green Deal or the energy transition that is currently underway. So you cannot escape it. Russian, Eurasian companies are adapting to this new reality. What I would like to highlight is that we need to conduct a dialogue. Indeed, the Green Deal is a new reality. By 2050, 27 nation states need to move to zero emissions. But there is room for a debate because there are a lot of populist statements that could actually somehow end up in populist decisions, and we would like to avoid that. We need to give appropriate interpretation to the goals and ambitions. Russia is a major player in the hydrocarbons sector, and Russia is also an important partner for the Eurasian Union. This is why we need to continue to engage with Russia in terms of adaptation of the decisions that we currently have and to give them the right momentum so that we end up in a kind of a standstill or in a dead end. I don't want to talk about the outcomes of the rating, but we are extremely happy to see them. The Russian companies have done an enormous amount of effort, and I'm sure that Russian and Eurasian companies will continue to pursue these efforts. I wish you all success and a very productive day.
Thank you very much. First, so we now started on the most interesting part of this session. We're going to learn who has taken what position this year. And before I give the floor to our partner and colleague, Viktor Chertergov, from the rating agency, I'd like to remind you one more time. Maybe some of you have been joining this for the first time. I'd like to remind you that the basic principle of this rating implies that our methodology we have developed at the WWF with the help of many other organizations is calculated by an independent rating agency selected on a tender basis in the past. This helps to make it more transparent, more unbiased, and to improve the quality of the calculations. So we would like to thank our partners for their reliable work. Victor, you have the floor now. For the key event in our session, you're going to tell us about the result of this calculation. You have the floor. Yes, thank you very much, Alexei. Dear colleagues, I would like to welcome all of you here in this most interesting event. It is happening in an unusual format, but I think nothing will prevent us from showing the best companies. Now, what do I have to say? Today we have heard already that this rating is 7 years old. And indeed, these competences we have been gaining together with our colleagues at the WWF and Creon. These competences have helped us to develop together with the rating, to grow together with the rating. Now, let me pass to the presentation, but before that, I'll say a few words. Right. I hope you can see it very well. So, this is what I have to say. We did not stand still either. We understand that we are responsible for what we do. We have done a lot this year as the agency. We have signed up to the responsible investment principle. We have developed the methodology for green bonds, social bonds, and other bonds assessment, and we hope this will increase our competence in these projects as well. Before I announce the results, I would like to tell you that the openness of the rating participants has been growing, and competition has been growing too. And clearly, this shows their respect. The companies are quite sensible about the publications, about what they publish. The number of companies has been growing too, but the competition in the top has become quite tough. It's like in elite sports. It's 10th or maybe 100th in the index. You will see this in the assessment yourself. Now, even when some results go down, this can affect the company's top position. So far, we have seen a growing trend, and this is very good. So, now I'd like to tell you about the results of this rating. I'll start from the third position as usual. So, please, your attention on the screen. Slide number 1. So, you see two winners here. The first winners of the third rank, so to say. The first certificate environmental information from oil and gas companies in the year 2020 is awarded to Lukoil Power. This is in the Russian segment. As for the second winner, the third runner-up is the diploma for openness of oil and gas companies from Kazakhstan in the year 2020, and the company is Karachaganak Petroleum Operating. So please have a close look at these two certificates, these two diplomas. Maybe take a picture, and we move on. So, the second runner-up. The diploma for openness of environmental information for the oil and gas sector companies in the year 2020 in Russia goes to Surgutneftegaz. They are the second this rating. The diploma for openness of oil and gas information in Kazakhstan year 2020 goes to North Caspian Operating Company. So, my congratulations to the company that took the second position. And finally, are the top companies in this rating, the winners. So, the diplomas look the same, but we see number 1 on these diplomas, and diploma number 1 in the Russian sector for the openness of environmental information in the oil and gas sector in year 2020 goes to Zarubezhneft. My congratulations. A well-deserved award. And the diploma for openness of environmental information in Kazakhstan in the oil and gas sector in the year 2020 goes to oil company Kazmunaygas. My congratulations, a well-deserved victory, and thank you very much for your participation and for the openness that you have demonstrated this year. I hope that next year you will be able to confirm these positions. We do really hope for this. We move on. I have a lot of information for you. So this is the overall outcome of year 2020 in Russia. You can see this table. These are the companies that have participated, and these are the final rankings. You can have a closer look at them. So this I would like to comment as regards the openness. I would like to point out that Gazprom, in particular, has demonstrated the best trends, best dynamics. They grew by 0.31 score, which is very high, ranking considering how dense they are there. This helped them to go 2 steps up, and they even won over companies that have been growing too. They are ahead of Rosneft and Gazpromneft. We also saw a significant growth of the overall score from Novatek and Tatneft. This helped these companies also to improve their positions. My congratulations to these companies too. They have been showing very good trends, and this shows that next year they can find themselves closer to the top position. Now, this is as regards the Russian sector, the picture of the Russian market in year 2020. The next slide will cover the companies in Kazakhstan. So I'm passing out to the Kazakhstan slide. So here you are. The first brief information. Kazakhstan companies have a special place here because I did not include companies from Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan in their overall rating. As companies from Kazakhstan, we can see a good example of how companies have been striving to reach this openness. Kazmunaygas is a very good example in this respect. The new experience in using ratings for internal openness will be covered by Karat Saktaganov from Kazmunaygas a bit later on in this session. And these are the companies that have taken all these places in Kazakhstan. You can see there's a number of companies that are quite close, but more or less we've seen that the companies have been showing greater growth and greater openness. This is very good. This is an evidence of the fact that this rating is getting quite popular. We also see in the lower part the outcomes for the oil and gas sector in Azerbaijan. Like I said, it's a special rating, a separate rating. You don't need to include it in the overall table. What is typical of this rating is the fact that there are 2 companies in the republics who have exceeded the 100,000 level, because this is the limitation that we use for this rating. These are government companies. Sokar and the Azerbaijan International Operation Company, where BP is the main shareholder. Therefore, we showed here as BP. The level of openness of the environmentally important information is not as high, maybe, but this is explained by the fact that the dialogue with the oil and gas companies in Azerbaijan has just started. We have just started to analyze, have started to interact. So we hope that in the very near future we'll reach a higher level of transparency on the part of the Azeri companies as well. And this will be reflected in final ratings. Well, this is basically all I have to say. Thank you very much for your attention. I think I've covered all the main facts. Now let us listen to the next speakers. Thank you. Thank you, Alexei. Thank you, Victor. I'd like to thank one more time you and your team for your excellent work. We know how much labor it takes, because feedback from companies is an important factor in this rating. And please trust me, it takes a lot of effort to get this feedback, to get it double-checked. And we would like to thank the companies that have been using this opportunity offered by this rating more and more from year to year. Now, it is a great pleasure for me to give floor for a brief presentation to a representative of Surgutneftegas. Well, firstly, we just learned that Surgutneftegas has taken a very well-deserved second place. And this feedback, this readiness for a dialogue that the company has been demonstrating, in particular, Eotil Ludbov Malishkina, has helped the company take this result. But this is not just about the place in the rating. It's about the fact that the corporate policies have been opening up to this very important factor. So, Lubov, you have the floor. Good morning, good afternoon, dear colleagues. So I would like to demonstrate my slides. I hope you can see it. I'm very glad to welcome all of you on behalf of the management of the companies in this openness rating event. And I would like to point out that clearly this has always been important for business. Our company, starting from the year 2004, has been publishing environmental reports every year. The culture of information, the culture of openness has been growing. All these reports are published on the company's website. And like I said, starting from year 2014, we have been taking part in this rating. Our report owing to the participation in this rating has changed a lot. It has become twice as informative. And this all is owing to the organizers of this rating, who have been proposing during our conversations, our meetings, our discussions of the methodology for calculation, new approaches and new indicators, and we were happy to take them into account. Because these indicators do have a certain sense. We have been working more actively in particular areas. And I'd like to point out here that we have always supported the main idea of the rating to encourage effective use of oil and gas resources, to promote environmental protection, and to encourage socially responsible business. This has always been a stimulus for us. Over the years that I've participated in this rating, we have expanded the main principles of our environmental policies and our obligations that we must meet in all the regions of our operations. We have introduced an obligation to carry out additional assessment of environmental risks whenever we work in environmentally sensitive areas. We have undertaken a responsibility and have started to publish information with respect to cooperation with indigenous peoples of the North quite actively. For instance, we have published on our website the principles and the policies for cooperation with indigenous small peoples of the North. We have published the guidelines for operations in the areas inhabited by these peoples. In close cooperation with them, we have worked out a guideline which addresses this point. And this all has happened owing to the developments owing to the rating. This rating has helped us in the region in Tyumen and Yakutia, which are the main regions of our operation, to organize constant monitoring of indicator species of biodiversity. We have prepared, starting from the year 2016, and we have been implementing a corporate program for biodiversity conservation. And the annual funding has reached 7.8 billion rubles every year. Overall, the investments of the companies in environmental protection and nature conservation, in the past year, for instance, in the past 3 years, they have reached a quite high and stable level of funding in all the areas of our operation. Over the past 10 years, this has amounted to 212 billion rubles, and the annual amount is about 26 billion rubles. We have been replenishing our material resources, our main assets. We have been upgrading them, refurbishing. We have been developing new technologies and implementing them. And we would like to thank the organizers of this rating for the opportunity to participate. It is with joint efforts that we can ensure the unbiased and open environmental information and a proper balance between nature protection and effective business. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Lyubov Alfred, one more time. My congratulations one more time. We'll have another speaker from Kazakhstan, from Kazmunaygas. Well, when we started to work on this rating in Kazakhstan, we saw that Kazmunaygas took a special interest in our rating. I remember our first meeting, our first workshops, and the company showed a sincere interest in our approach. So we're glad that the company has been showing the great indicators. They agreed to tell about their experience in using our approaches in developing their corporate policies and practices of risk management in Kazakhstan. It's a pleasure for me to give floor to representative of Kazmunaygas, Director of Environmental Protection Agency, Dr. Kagar.
Good afternoon, Mr. Knizhnikov. Our company is a unique, vertically integrated oil and gas operator. We work from the upstream to midstream and downstream. We're happy to be part of the ranking in terms of environmental transparency. And as a national operator, we were happy to be top of the rating in 2017, on the year when this rating was launched, and we've been on top for the past 4 years. It's our voluntary commitment to honor obligations in environmental protection. Our updated environmental policy will focus on climate, biodiversity, and the need to conduct environmental impact assessment on special protected areas and land rehabilitation. Our company is improving its HSE policy and is in dialogue with all the key stakeholders. This is fully in line with our commitments as they're set forth in our environmental policy. We need to appropriately and timely disclose information both to the public, to the government, and to all the other key stakeholders concerning the environmentally important, environmentally relevant data and events. We also reflect a lot of information in our annual report. We have a lot of information available on our website. We also call on our subsidiaries to be transparent and to make regular disclosures. In 2017, 2018, we only had extraction companies that are our subsidiaries, but since 2018, the rating also included midstream and downstream companies, and also companies from other countries, our neighbors. So we would like to thank the organizers of the rating and other companies that are part of it. So we hope that you will announce the winners for our Eurasian rating too. So we welcome this rating, and we call on all the organizations to support this rating and to continue to improve their commitments to minimize their impact for the environment. Thank you. Thank you so much. The report that we'll put on the website definitely includes information on your subsidiaries. And we might also we might also share the screen and present the performance regarding transparency on the screen. And that would concern your subsidiaries. Many of our experts in their welcoming remarks said that this year has been pretty dramatic for the environment. There's been a series of events. One of the biggest ones was on Timor. It shocked entire Russia, and we need to think of how we can prevent any further disasters like this. This is why we wanted to focus on how we can influence the situation through our rating. And I'd like to give the floor to Ludmila Ametistova, and then the representative of Zarubezhneft will speak on this issue. WWF-Russia has conducted surveys since 2017. Can you see the screen? Yes, but thank you. So we do reports on disasters in the oil and gas sector. As we were looking for information on the rating criteria, we identified that on two criteria, reporting to the public and disputed reports, no information is available on the website of the companies, and we had to search for external data sources. This is why we decided to put forward a new initiative, search for data on these failures. And we put together all the data into these interactive maps. Each of the dots represents some kind of disputed event or a disaster, and you have sources for the data and some feedback from the particular company if there was any. So that's the 2019 map. It's published on the WWF website. It's interactive. You can have a look at all the meta files. So it's not the actual number of the disasters. These were the incidents that were either reported by the government agencies or reported by the media. So we take the data from the Ministry of Energy, from prosecutors' websites, and from the emergencies ministry websites. And some companies have submitted feedback concerning these incidents. And every year, these companies seem to submit even more substantive feedback. So this is how we put together this database. It's a comprehensive platform that tracks all of the incidents related to environmental harm. And these companies have now started to put information on the incidents on their own websites. Some general level information on the number of incidents surfaced in the reports of three companies, Sakhalin Energy, Lukoil, and Gazprom Neft. Surgutneftegaz actually set up a section on its website. It can receive some claims from individuals, complaints, and so anyone can file a complaint or a report on the website. We understand that our approach is retroactive. This is a disadvantage. Currently, we present the results for 2019, so it's a 1-year lag. But as we move forward, in order to mitigate the impact on the environment, we definitely need to engage regional NGOs, eco-activists, and conservationists in this process. We also need to automate it. So we currently launched a project, People for the Environment, or to the environment. It's been launched thanks to the support of the EU, and we hope that it will ultimately lead to lower number of incidents. The more often these incidents are made public, the more motivated companies will be to invest into upgrading their facilities. It's easy to prevent than to fix the issues afterwards. Thank you so much, Ms. Ametistova, and now I'd like to give the floor to the representative of Zarubezhneft. Congratulations.
Будем рады услышать ваш доклад, Елена Копасенко.
On a place on the pedestal, Yelena Kompasenko, Head of Health, Safety and Environment. Thank you so much, Mr. Knizhnikov. I'd like to thank the organizers of this very important initiative that every year we wait with bated breath for this conference to finally get the assessment of the public on whether our company is up to scratch. We're always happy to learn from the experience of other companies. Thank you so much for having this rating. Thank you for this high assessment. We try to do our job in the best way possible. Thank you for this assessment. It's really rewarding. So I'd like to focus today on our preparedness and on the mechanisms that Zarubezhneft has to make sure it can respond to any emergencies or to any disasters.
Остановиться на одном из важном событии, которое происходило у нас в компании «Зарубежные
We had an important event.
Я кратко хотела бы сказать о проекте. Это у нас
проект. One of our deposits, one of the oil fields, is a joint project. We have Glenor and Total. These are our co-investors. It's the Kharyaginsk oil field in the Komi region in the north of Russia. Do you think I could share the screen so that I could show you the slides? Do you want us to show the presentation? Yes, please. Could you share the slides?
Вы пока расскажете, сейчас мы запустим.
У проекта существуют свои особенности. Безусловно, конечно, мы все прекрасно понимаем, что вопросы экологической безопасности, промышленной безопасности, готовности к чрезвычайным ситуациям этого главе.
This is definitely a unique project.
Совершенно.
And safety needs to be the cornerstone.
Скажите, пожалуйста, я могу листать?
Нет, говорите мне, я буду листать.
Хорошо, спасибо.
You can ask me to show the next slide. So HSE is one of the priorities for us. As I said, we have both Russian and foreign investors on board.
Каковы технические особенности проекта?
So what are the technical requirements? A high level of paraffin in oil and also SO2.
Особенности проекта – это особый правовой, имущественный, экономический.
So there is a high level of sulfur. And what are the pros? We have very good tax breaks, and the terms are the same for the entire service of the project, the entire life cycle of the project. So these are the illustrations for our preparedness to any emergencies.
Проводит ревизию и пополнение материально-технических.
The local operator does an inventory of the rescue facilities and equipment. We conduct exercises, or the so-called drills, every season.
Несмотря на серьезную пандемическую
we
ситуацию.
replenish any of the equipment, any of the gear that it's necessary to do that.
Нештатное аварийно-спасательное формирование, это 40
And
человек у нас.
we have a staff of 40 people. They have been trained in line with all the necessary requirements. They are ready to respond to any emergency.
Да.
Безусловно, конечно, тема
So
наших
that's a table where they discuss the next round of exercises. And the topic of the exercise is not taken at random. We look at the registry of possible incidents. We look at the incidents that take place in Russia and abroad. And we put together the detailed plan of the exercises. We look at the most unexpected scenario and the most hazardous scenario. We try to engage specialists from more and more disciplines to increase the coverage, to make sure that all the specialists know what to do at a time of emergency. And we're also interact with other companies in the adjacent industries and with the local government agencies and bodies and with the municipal authorities too. So we had many exercises. I'll talk about the past 5 rounds of drills. They engaged third-party representatives, a regional emergencies ministry, and the Ministry of Energy representatives, also representatives from the native tribes and ethnic groups, and also Equinor and Total representatives, and also the certifying body Bureau Veritas and WWF-Russia. It means we are extremely open. We want to seek advice and recommendations, best practices, innovative solutions, practice exchange from the third-party independent stakeholders. And it's not just an invitation. We have a manual, like an instruction of the guidelines on how to engage people from the public, to engage third-party agencies and bodies. We can always update this manual, these guidelines. We engaged the representative of herdsmen from the Nenets region and also the representatives of the Association of the Nenets people in that region. So we also shoot films like tutorials, video tutorials. We always publish these video clips we broadcast them on local television channels. We have them on our websites, and we show them on the TV banners, outdoor banners. So on the 6th of August, we had one of the rounds, and the incident involved an oil spill from one of the pipelines, and that involved an oil spill in the river Kolva. More than 50 people and 10 pieces of equipment were used. We used skimmers to collect the oil and absorb it. So the message is that we need to be prepared for any kind of scenario. So this is why it's involved so many people. So we really looked at the most complicated scenario possible. Now, if you look at the next slide, here's what I would like to highlight. We understand it's been a challenging year. Despite this, all of the drills had to take place on time. Definitely, we had to make changes into the operations, into our business plans, but it did not have an impact on the schedule of the drills, on our preparedness.
Мы хотели бы показать, хотели бы довести информацию о двух учениях, которые проведены были на Харягинском
So we
месторождении.
had
Это
2
31 июля 20
drills on the oil field, on this Haryagинskaya oil field, on the 31st of July and the 25th of August. We had to contain an oil spill from a reservoir
нефтепроявления в процессе освоения скважины.
and also in the oil well during the exploration.
Что готовность к чрезвычайным ситуациям в случае возникновения
In case of any incident
распространения коронавирусной инфекции, либо
related to COVID-19,
мы проводим и проводили неоднократно на всех
we conducted
компаниях
preventive measures starting from March.
Всех компаний зарубеж нефти. Я хотела бы сказать, что на сегодняшний
And I would like to say that currently we have not had any proven, any confirmed COVID cases. And next slide, please.
У меня закончена презентация. Мне
My
хотелось бы...
presentation is over, and now I'd like to tell you that I would like to thank the organizers of this event.
Мы подтверждаем то, что это нужно, это важно, и
We've been confirming for some years that this is important, this is quite important, and the methodology for this rating is constantly updated. But if you have any proposals, we would like to thank you for sharing them. We would like to thank you also for asking us for our opinion as to what we can improve, as to how this methodology can be updated. Zarubezhneft has a special focus on expansion. We expand the geography of our operations. And in view of this, we also expand the geography of our openness, environmental openness. Next year, I would like to assess how this methodology of the openness of oil and gas companies in the environmental sector in Russia can be also applied on our foreign assets. And we think that the pilot project would be the joint venture with the Uzbekistan Uzbek Neftegas companies in Andijan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for this presentation, and thank you very much for this initiative. Well, indeed, this is a very important step. I've been waiting for a long time for some of the first companies in Russia to offer this initiative, to use this rating on their foreign assets. So, congratulations on this initiative. I'm sure that this will serve as a good example to other companies too. And I'd like to thank you. And clearly, we're going to discuss this with our Uzbek colleagues. I think that our colleagues and partners in the rating will be happy to support this geographical expansion in Uzbekistan. I hope that COVID will not prevent us in year 2021 even to hold a strong webinar to promote our approaches. So, colleagues, we have practically finalized the agenda for the first part of this session. I have this very brief proposal. Before we proceed to the roundtable, which is going to be in a more interactive format, although we're going to listen to reporters as well. But today we have here with us our long-term partner and a great supporter of these approaches to encourage dialogues, Yelena Feoktistova, from the Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs. So, Yelena, please, could you say a few words on what the Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs has been doing to promote these approaches in Russia? The microphone, please. Yes, thank you. Colleagues, first of all, I would like to congratulate you. For 7 years, you have been at the forefront of this, fight, if I may say so, for higher information openness. This work has been giving its fruit, and we can see them. I think that such tools which have been recognized by the experts community and the business community, tools that help companies, but also those who take decisions about these companies and assess these companies. So such tools have to grow in number and in scale. And I think this is going to be a very important step. And this environmental rating is a very reliable tool in this respect. Well, I always say that it is very important and very interesting, not just important, to compare the results of assessments offered by various agencies. And we always are keen to compare your assessment and our assessments that we do for sustainable development indices. Because 1/3 of these indices fall on the environmental aspect. And this affects the overall assessment of the leaders in the Russian business sector. We're going to do this, or rather to publish the assessment for year 2019. This is going to be on the 23rd of December. But, you know, I looked at the previous years. Well, clearly, many leaders stay in the top positions. So I looked up and I saw that 7 companies out of those that are included on your list of 18 companies, 7 companies, which is 40%, fall in the index of Russian business leaders too. And this has a good reason, because we understand that these environmental, sociological and environmental aspects are intertwined. They affect each other. A company cannot be a leader if they have bad environmental indices. Or maybe it's good with the environment, but they don't publish any information about it, which is not good either. So I believe that we have been working together to make business more open and more responsible. But I also think what is more important is that we have been increasing trust to Russian business. In the past years, we've been hearing that, you know, there are lots of sites where the sustainable development has been discussed in various aspects. Companies have been presenting their various practices, and, you know, incredible what they have reached. But few people know it, only experts maybe. Whereas if there's a problem, then everybody learns about it immediately. Well, this is the right thing to do, but we also need to learn about the progress in this area, about the achievements that we can see there, about the successes, and about the steps that have helped us to see these positive trends. So I'd like to congratulate you one more time. I do support your activities. I keep always saying, let us work together, let us make it grow, and clearly my congratulations go to the winners. It is very good to be assessed at this high level. It is always a very good stimulus to move on. Thank you very much, Yelena. Yes, that's what we're going to do. We're going to work together. So, colleagues, this brings me to the second part of the session. I hope that we'll be able to hear very quickly to the reporters. So please, I encourage all the reporters to keep the agenda, to keep your time slots, so that we can have time for interactive dialogue to answer the questions that we've been receiving online. So I'm not going to explain why we have included the energy transition into the Eurasian context, because we'd like to understand how our oil extraction countries can realistically react to the challenges in the energy transition aspect. So very briefly, just a few days ago, we had this large meeting that the Russian president had held to discuss the development of the oil and gas sector. And he said, among other things, dear oil companies, please get prepared to the fact that in 5 years' time, we're going to reach the peak of demand for oil. I never heard our president say such concrete facts before, but this is actually what we need to get prepared for. And so this first roundtable will open up a large dialogue of the public, the industry, and other stakeholders. And we need to think how to add new criteria to our rating, criteria which will monitor and encourage our leading sector of the economy towards this goal. So, in this view, I would like to hear to our European colleagues. I would like to give floor to Hans from the Eastern Business Committee, and he speaks very good Russian. Yes, I hope that I will be able to show that I have very good command of Russian. But first of all, I'd like to tell that I congratulate you on the 7 years of this training. It was a very wise decision 7 years ago to open this new page, which has become a decisive trend already in Russia, and it will stay so in the future as well. I worked in Moscow for a long time and had the honor and the privilege to see the extraction industries, the extraction companies such as Novatek or Surgutneftegaz or Gazprom, and I was quite impressed by how much Russian companies have been doing to conserve the fragile nature in the Arctic and Siberia. So I confirm this personally. But getting back to today's topic, I would like to say very briefly about the Green Deal. A short time ago, I saw in a conference that Russia, for some reason, has translated into Russian as a green contract. Well, a contract has a somewhat suspicious connotation, if I may. Well, I looked up the meanings of the word deal. It's an agreement, it's a number, as strange as it may seem, and it's a contract. And all the three translations do have a relation to this Green Deal. As for the Green Agreement, it's not an agreement inside the EU. It would be a perfect agreement between the EU and Eurasian Economic Council and between the EU and Russia, because this would help us in an area which fundamentally affects all our common interests to overcome the political disagreements which unfortunately are a fact today, and to begin working together in this fundamental area from green field, from scratch, without any political preconditions. So I think that would be a very good achievement. So that's as far as our common interests are concerned. We all know that the Arctic has been growing warmer twice as quickly as the rest of the world, which is very important for Russia. This would also be an agreement which aims into the future for many, many years to come. The second meaning of this word is the quantity, the amount. This is important because Russia has not only the world's largest resources in terms of classical resource of energy, but also we'll all know that it has the greatest resource of renewable energy resources, such as wind energy and other sources of energy. Russia has huge opportunities, and we've seen a number of conferences in the area of hydrogen energy generation, which is also an important aspect of the Green Deal in the EU. So we will see an enormous opportunity for cooperation here as well. And clearly for many years, many decades even, it will be required to use the so-called bridge technology. And clearly the oil and natural gas will be a bridge towards this green energy. And hydrogen, natural gas will play an important role in hydrogen economy. This is why we support Nord Stream in this respect. The potential is huge in this respect. And the third meaning of the word deal, maybe some will be surprised, but it is crucial in respect to this Green Deal to earn money. Because I think that the market incentive, if the companies see a market there, then it will be even easier for us to implement this Green Deal. It cannot be just the task of the governments. It cannot just be the task of the government regulation. But if we succeed in joining the ecology and economy, this will be great. If we look at the changes that have taken place in Germany in the past years, we'll see that it has become a great market. Why is Germany building these big generating plants on gas, not just because we're leaving coals, alternative sources. Even the photovoltaic, which is quite surprising for Russia, will be economically more competitive. This is a fundamental development trend, and we find it very good. Or electric mobility. Germany has become one of the centers in Europe and globally for the production of car battery production for Tesla and for the classical car manufacturers. Fundamental changes. This balance between economy and ecology will play an important role when we work with the carbon border adjustments. We've been hearing from Russia that this is a protectionist tool. No, this is not true. This is a method to incentivize not only German companies, but the companies worldwide to start using high environmental standards. Clearly, the companies that export oil and gas from Russia will find it as a blow, but we're open for a dialogue here. And this is important to make this carbon border adjustment mechanism to prevent it from turning into protectionist tools, but rather to encourage the energy transition for all the stakeholders. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mikhail. And now I'd like to give floor to the General Director of the European Business Association, Tatsu Schilling. You have the floor. Alexei, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I would like also to begin by congratulating the organizers on the successful presentation of this rating. And the winners, clearly, but also all the participants. Because not only the victory in this rating is important, but the participation, comparison of the best practices, learning from the best, striving to move forward on and on. I think that all the reports that I've heard here are an evidence and a testimony to the fact that this platform encourages these trends. I'm also glad to be present on this site, to see all my friends from other chambers, other associations, because this topic unites us, despite the fact that there are lots of unsolved questions. It is a special pleasure for me to speak after Michael Hans from the Eastern German Business Association. Has been quite convincing. Yes, year 2020 has indeed shown that there's always a risk in life. There are always what you may call black swans in our life. And these challenges are of global scale. And you need to be able to respond to them. You need to be able to find solutions that will cover more than one country. This is as regards the ecology and the transition to a more sustainable development methods, to lower carbon trajectories. What we have observed as the Association of European Business. Well, both Europe, Michael has just told us about the importance of the Green Deal, the Green Agreement, the Green Quality, the Green Growth, reformation of the economy. On the other hand, we have observed similar trends in other countries. For instance, in the Pacific region, where China has announced their commitment to reaching, even before the EU, the carbon neutrality level. Same applies to Korea and to Japan. So if we look at the geography of the globe, we see that in this big Eurasia, where Russia is in the heart, both on the eastern part and the western part, this transition has been accelerating. These efforts have been growing to reach this Green Deal. This means just one thing. This means that Russia not only needs to do this, but it is also a great chance for Russia to participate in this transition from the very beginning. On the one hand, this will unite everybody because we all have the same incentives. As we have just heard, changes in the Arctic region, in the Siberian parts of Russia, have been going on quicker than in other climate areas. But there are also energy security aspects, but also technology factors, such as the wish to be at the forefront of the technology development, the technological frontier. And not to lose connection with the latest trend of the economy.
This is where the big chance is, and so we call upon our Russian partners and the government and the public not to look at the agenda just in terms of the risks. It needs to be perceived as an opportunity. And third, we need to avoid any risky and unnecessary politicization. It seems that we have enough conflicts and disputes between the EU and Russia. We don't need to pile anything else on top of it. So carbon border adjustment mechanism is a disputed issue. We need to discuss ways to overcome it. But again, we shouldn't just get fixated on the negatives. It's just one issue. And as Mr. Knizhnikov said, the oil peak is not the supply peak, it's the demand peak. So demand would reach its maximum, and then it will start shrinking. This is why it's extremely important to catch these opportunities. We can also see that our corporate sector, our members of the association, are now launching on a grand scale projects to introduce low carbon technology. 892 companies from the EU said that they invested 124 billion euro into research and development, into technology, including on electric cars, 43 billion, on renewables, 16, on smart grids, 15, and on smart use of electric energy, 8 billion. It means that the corporate sector is moving towards that, and policymakers need to support this process. I guess they should not stand in the way and send the right signals where it's needed. What's important for the investors is to have a kind of stable, long-term horizon for the planning. It needs to be clear, and the corporate sector needs to adjust to it. And second, they need to remove the barriers. There could be solutions which are unique to Russia. There could be solutions which are unique to Asia or to Europe. If we add more barriers, then again you can see extra pressure, and some new quotas may be introduced. This is bad, and these smart solutions, this cutting-edge technology, on the more sustainable use of power, it's not really hardware. It's IT solutions, and that's what we need to focus on. If we add new barriers in this area, then we will miss on some of the opportunities that this energy transition could offer. This is the position of the European Association of European Business, and we're happy to work together with all of the stakeholders that are right now on this call. Thank you. And what is the Russian response? What can the oil and gas community do in response to this Green Deal? And we wanted to have a more general view, high-level view by Mr. Kapitanov, who is a gas analyst from the Skolkovo Energy Center, and we also have representatives from Gazprom Creon Capital. So 7 minutes. Yes, I will launch my slides myself. Thank you so much to the speakers for their insightful reports and for the invitation. Mr. Knizhnikov, thank you. A new rating is a new milestone. In my report, I'll try to stick to the 5-minute limit. I'd like to talk about the gap between Europe's plans and the Russian oil and gas sector plans. And are there any points in convergence? Can we really find common ground? I'll show you 3 slides that will be food for thought and will definitely not claim to be the ultimate response. Can you see my slides?
Ну, для начала, наверное, хотелось бы отметить, что, безусловно, для России запасы газа и нефти...
Russia's oil and gas fields and their monetization is the key driver for the economy. Our economy continues to be heavily dependent on oil and gas exports. Again, it's 15% of oil export revenues. And these natural resources are still vast. About 50 trillion cubic meters of oil and gas. And you need to monetize them in a new reality. So the energy strategy until 2030 envisages a growth of oil and also an increase of LNG too. So we're supposed to double our exports, despite the fact that we already beat some of the records in the previous years. So this double increase in the exports of oil and gas, and I will focus on natural gas mainly, will take place at a time when the decarbonization, green trends will pick up pace in the West and in the East too. So China announced its ambitious goals to become carbon neutral by 2060, and Japan and South Korea joined that call. So decarbonization is now not just on the agenda of the EU, it's an international, global agenda. This is why monetizing Russian natural resources will rely on diversification of the routes and customers. More natural gas will go to emerging markets that will replace coal, and demand for natural gas will be higher there, unlike Europe. And again, there are other regions like the EU where they will be abandoning natural gas and moving to renewables more. So the Green Deal is a major milestone, a new political statement, and that will be the blueprint for the strategy for Europe. It needs to move to zero CO2 emissions by 2050. And there are some interim goals that are being discussed. It was increased from 40% to 55%. There is opposition to these ambitious goals within Europe too. We need to recognize that. But regardless of these opposition calls, this zero carbon thinking becomes mainstream in Europe, and Russia needs to put up with it. And in the best case scenario, it has to adjust to it and cooperate. Europe has taken first steps that could have an impact on Russian exporters, the so-called methane strategy. It will introduce transparent monitoring of methane emissions along the entire value creation chain, and also hydrogen, green hydrogen. But for Russia, blue hydrogen would be more preferable. That is produced from natural gas, and carbon tax could add several billion euro a year from Russian exporters to the coffers of the EU. And again, the EU will favor investment in priority areas. There will be stringent limits for CO2 emissions for new metal plants. Like 1 gram of CO2 for 1 kilo of output. Germany, Hungary, Poland are moving away from coal. And some of the countries are moving away from nuclear too. So political decisions in Europe are dramatic. They have an impact on our interests. You cannot turn a blind eye to it. You cannot gloss it over. So are we in the same boat, or are we on different camps? So our conviction at Skolkovo is that there is a great number of relevant initiatives and projects in our business community. The big problem is that these campaigns, these efforts are not brought up to a high level. They are just ignored. But if we intensify dialogue between Russia and the EU, Europe can also hear about some of the potential from the Russian zero carbon technology. Different compensation mechanisms are introduced in the strategies by corporates, like planting new trees. Modernizing financial strategies is another important area. Companies are implementing investment projects based on the price of CO2 emissions. So this is a new mindset. It will push many companies to rethink their strategies. They need to focus and invest into renewables. It's CCS technology development. That's the change that we currently see in the Middle East, in Japan, in Asia. Russia has a great scientific school in hydrogen. Gazprom, Novatek, Rosatom put a lot of focus on hydrogen. Gazprom believes that pyrolysis could be the key to it, and Rosneft, it's ammonia, it will be the source, and Rosatom wants to use nuclear energy to produce hydrogen. In any case, the Russian business community needs to pick up this new topic, and it's a great opportunity. It could help us to move away from oil and gas exports and go to hydrogen exports. Most companies submit their environmental reports saying their methane emissions are going down, and some of the speakers mentioned that, but we don't have a single methodology or a single monitoring system that we could share with our European partners. And this methodology needs to be verified. This is where we can work on further on. If Europe introduces carbon tax, Russia could also reintroduce some kind of quotas or some kind of monitoring system. We tried to introduce Kyoto Protocol quotas, but it wasn't really a successful effort. Lukoil actually said that they need to plant trees and introduce other compensation schemes and arrangements. So we believe that the Russian business community does have a lot of opportunities, and our European partners can hear about some of the Russian projects underway in this area. So we need to move ahead and work together. And again, we hope that the EU will not have any discrimination against Russia. It will help to save the Russian oil and gas sector, and Europe could get another source of clean energy from its closest partner. Thank you so much, Sergei. Indeed, so many points that could be discussed. Thank you for this great overview. Time is running out, and we now need to move to some of the Russian companies that might reply to some of the questions that you raised. Konstantin Romanov of PAO Gazprom. This year, indeed, your company has improved disclosures and has really shot up the ranking. Thank you. I'm happy to see all of you. I will have slides. We'll go back to our main topic, energy transition. We are all aware that the energy transition is about lower CO2 emissions. And Gazprom has the lowest carbon footprint in its output among the biggest oil and gas companies around the world. It's very important to compare apples and apples. Very often, the size matters. You know, it's difficult to compare the performance of Monaco and Germany. Very often we see that scores are introduced, but it could be misleading. So let's look at the biggest oil and gas producers. We have the lowest carbon footprint, and that, in essence, in itself, helps us to ensure this energy transition. According to KPMG, actually, our footprint, our emissions is even lower. we also managed to achieve a 1.5% decrease last year. That's in line with the Paris Accord targets. Renewables are also developed, particularly in those areas where it is economically efficient. And we also have plans for the next 5 years in terms of renewables. Now let's go back to natural gas. Natural gas is actually the interim link in that energy transition. Our energy balance in Russia is more carbon neutral by 200 grams of CO2 in the ton equivalent. Natural gas has made its contribution. If you look at Russia, bringing natural gas to the Far East has been a major contribution. As you can see, there is a strong correlation between the stronger introduction of natural gas and the reduction of CO2 emissions. And we can also look at CNG. CNG could be a great source of fuel for vehicles.
So let us travel our dreams far and high. Let's think how the world is going to change if we give up coal altogether. The reduction in this case will be more than 10 billion tons of CO2, which is order of magnitude more than the emissions of the entire EU. So, as part of the Green Deal, Gazprom has participated in public discussions and we have proposed a particular framework. You can see on the slide that we propose that first we proceed from coal to gas, to methane, and then to hydrogen produced from natural gas. Reductions can reach up to 95%. This has been confirmed not only by our calculations, but also by calculations from European scientists. So it is important not to ignore various technologies for the sake of prejudices, but rather to ensure a democratic approach and technological neutrality in selecting any technology which will ensure a reduction in GHG emissions. This is why we have been developing two innovative areas, such as use of methane and hydrogen fuel to reduce carbon footprint in gas production and deliveries, and a totally new approach to the area production of hydrogen without any CO2 emissions. And here's a comparison. I've been discussing technologies with you. We have been mentioning electrolysis. People say that producing hydrogen from water is the most environmental friendly approach, but as the Munich University has demonstrated, if electrolysis is used in year 2040, considering that we will most probably need a lot of hydrogen and you will need to use green electricity, emissions in this case will be much higher than in case we apply the technology offered by Gazprom, that is electrolysis, pyrolysis. This is why we think that the best approach is to transport gas to the places where people will need hydrogen and to produce hydrogen there using these innovative technologies. As we heard 2 days ago, this is why the company has established a special company, Gazprom Vodorod, Gazprom Hydrogen. We see great potential in projects like this. But let's get back to the present time. At the moment, 90% of hydrogen in Europe is produced from natural gas. Where do people take this natural gas? We've seen in the past time that supplies, unfortunately for us, maybe luckily for someone else, but still, we've seen growth in supplies of LNG in Europe. But in this case, the carbon footprint of liquefied natural gas is greater. This is due to objective reasons, because it takes more energy to liquefy. In view of this, the amount of emissions also grows. This is why transition from pipeline gas to LNG has increased in emissions as well by 2.7 billion tons. So, finally, to sum up, we have prepared a special program for adaptation to climate change. We've been working on this for many years. As soon as we came to the Russian north, we have developed the proper technologies for stabilizing the soil there. We have a special roadmap to reduce emissions from Gazprom by year 2030. And another important element, landmark element, is development for scenarios for sustainable development of Gazprom with the view of the low-carbon trends globally until year 2030. And the manager of the company has taken this into account, and we will have special targets in this respect for the long term. Natural gas, in this case, in any case, will be the foundation for the low-carbon energy as a resource, but also as a raw material for hydrogen production. Thank you, Konstantin. It would be strange if somebody from Gazprom wouldn't think like this. Still, it's a very interesting report. I'm sure, Konstantin, that we will be able to find an opportunity to continue this dialogue along the lines which you have outlined. I think it is going to be a new task to develop the dialogue in our community between the companies. The next speaker is a representative of Lukoil, Vasily Zubakin. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you with a high place on our rating. It's a well-deserved place. You have worked a lot to reach it. So, Vasily, please tell us about what Lukoil has been doing in this respect. I'm going to launch your presentation now, right? And you can begin. The microphone, please. The microphone, please. The speaker is not using the microphone. I'm very sorry.
Да, пожалуйста.
The interpreter cannot hear the speaker.
Так, стоп. Почему-то мы вас не слышим. Не слышим.
The interpreter cannot hear the speaker. I'm very sorry.
Слушайте, проблемы нет. Мы вас не слышим. Видите, мы не проверили, не протестировали.
I'm very sorry. We cannot hear you. We have not tested the connection. So, please try solving this issue with this sound, and I will give floor to Florian. Florian, will you be able to begin? Oh, yes, sure, I can. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Florian Willishausen. I represent the Creon Capital Investment Company. I will tell you very briefly about our vision on the financing for green projects. But first of all, I would like to congratulate all of you on this 7th-year anniversary of the rating. I'm very glad that you've been doing this. This year has shown that the oil and gas sector in Russia has been moving on very quickly in the right direction and improving their results in the area of openness. This is a very important result. As a German who has been trying to strengthen connections between the East and the West for the past 50 years, I find this very important. This topic of GHG reduction, GHG emission reduction, and the energy policy is exactly what will stay as a very good, very promising segment for cooperation between Eurasia in general and Europe. I will come back to this later on, but I must say that transparency has grown a lot in the past years. But this is just step one. What we can see today in the corporate sector, in the non-commercial reports, is the status quo. The actors in the financial market have been paying ever more attention to the KPI for the strategic development. We already heard that Gazprom has been doing this. We need to show to the market how and where you can reduce emissions and how much. What percentage can you use and where? I think we'll hear about it from Lukoil as well later on. And what product can bring revenues to companies in the future? And the responses to all these questions will bring us to a great extent to an area at the top level, to the board of directors level, from the level of the experts, because environmental responsibility will be becoming more and more important for strategic development of companies. And this will take special investments. In my opinion, this can be explained by two factors. The first factor, the financial sector, our fund sits in Luxembourg. We can observe more and more pension funds and banks, investment funds, but also large private investors or investment companies such as BlackRock leaving the oil and gas sector. If the actor fails to demonstrate high performance in ESG, this is the ESG stands for environmental social governance. These are important factors such as the environmental factor. We need to show to the market what companies do to become the best ones. This is a step-by-step process. We need to show it to European companies, US companies, Chinese companies, but also Russian companies, how the strategy looks like. And we need to invest. The Russian side will also see this. The main buyers sit in Europe. Hydrogen is going to become a very important topic in Europe in the coming future. So far, people think in Europe that you can still make it with electrolysis and use wind energy. But in my opinion, this is the approach offered by Gazprom Novatek is the right one. We need to make hydrogen based on natural gas without emissions of CO2, via pyrolysis or via sequestration of CO2. This is important. It is important to do this, to prepare this, which implies investment projects will be required. So, to sum up, what does this mean? Well, one, it's quite clear we need to develop a full chain, supply chain to Europe, to supply Europe with alternative energy sources. This is large-scale work. We can even see how this looks. Novatek, for instance, they not only send LNG to European ports, but they also have been building bunkering stations to bunker ships, because LNG is much better than heavy oil or furnace oil, which is used widely. So in the next 10 to 20 years, it will help us to reduce emissions. But most importantly, that Novatek organized this themselves, the entire supply chain, and the value added. They use their own investments. Gazprom have been doing this with hydrogen themselves. But in the future, it will not be enough just to send raw materials to the border and hope that somebody will buy it at a decent price. we will need to work more actively, all of us, from all the countries worldwide, to participate in these chains. This also implies that we need to develop technologies. For instance, Russia have to develop their technologies, to export these technologies, to launch pilot projects, so as to show how you can refuel a streetcar with hydrogen, for instance, like they did in St. Petersburg. This will, Florian, very sorry to disturb you. Let's try and give floor to Vasily. Okay, give me a minute. I will sum up very briefly. Basically, I'm reaching the end of my presentation. We have excellent timing, don't we? So, to sum up, we also need to look at this environmental topic as a source of cheap funding, because these green bonds, for instance, which we will also deal with in Luxembourg, will become cheaper than usual bonds, because investors want to invest in this area. This is why this new reality of environmental funding can be used not only in Europe but also in Russia, and to develop your own projects. We are ready to cooperate with all of you in this respect and to participate in your projects together with you. So we have a lot to do together, but we're going along the right way into the green future. Thank you, Florian. Thank you. Vasily, you have the floor. Good afternoon, colleagues. I hope you can see me and hear me now. Can you? Yes, all right. Lukoil has positioned itself not as an oil and gas company, but as an energy company. And in my presentation, you will see that we have 26 kilowatt hours of electric energy, 6.5 gigawatts of capacity of electric generation. And what is important is that we work in the electric energy sector of 5 countries: Russia, Italy, Romania, Bulgaria, and Iraq. And we work also in the renewable energy sources area. Right?
Удается презентацию включить?
Да, я включил.
Can you share the presentation? No, I don't see it.
В общем балансе выработки...
In the overall balance of electric power generation, the share of the renewable sources is 6%. The rest of the generation is a high energy combined gas generation, effective CHPPs in cogeneration, and generation which helps us to utilize in a rational way the accompanying natural gas. The 6% fall into 3 sectors: hydroelectric power stations, photovoltaic, and wind generation. As regards wind generation, we have built from scratch a power plant of 4.8 megawatts in Romania, and we work quite successfully in the regulatory environment. We have bought quotas, we have gained competence, and we intend to develop wind energy in Russia as well. We do wind measurements in one of the Russian regions, and without putting the cart before the horse, I would like to tell that sometime later in one of the next ratings, we will be able to offer you wind energy in Russia as well. Now, as regards photovoltaics, we have a certain know-how in this respect. We have been developing these PV stations in the areas where our oil processing plants are generating. I'll look at it. The fact is that each oil processing plant has a huge area, thousands of hectares. So a rational use of this land plot for green energy is a very, very good task that can pay back very well. Initially, we installed 1 megawatt of capacity in Burgas on the oil processing plant in Bulgaria. Then there were 9 megawatts on the oil processing plant in Romania. We already launched 10 megawatts in Volgograd. In the Volgograd power oil processing plant, we're building another 10 megawatt capacity. Furthermore, we're developing hydro generation quite actively. In the near future, we're going to finalize the reconstruction of this small-scale hydroelectric power plant in the Krasnodar region, and we're going to develop, already started designing a PV station, PV plant in the Krasnodar area. We're going to use the land plot which have not been used in the past. So, as a result, Lukoil has gained competences in 3 areas: wind, sun, and energy. We've been watching this process very closely.
And we understand that there'll be another incentives like carbon tax or any other instruments, then that will enable us to develop this sector here in Russia. So we would like to join the state program for the support of renewables. We have a lot of R&D in a number of regions. We have a lot of appetite for this new business. Thank you. Thank you so much. We've been getting some questions. Question to Konstantin. So adaptation to climate. Do you use new ISO standards? Yes. So it's standard 140090. It was published last year, and we've been definitely in compliance. We also have another question to Fares. Fares, are you online? Are you with us?
Я на связи.
Yes, I'm online. Are foreign investors ready to invest into green projects in Russia despite the sanctions? Are sanctions a factor in this? Well, if you have a good investment plan, if you have a win-win solution, then sanctions would be put on the back burner. There will not be a very important factor. Let's take one example. Let's take Yamal. The rate of return by US companies is almost 45% after the US sanctions were introduced. And I'm referring to US companies that have joint projects with Russian companies. This is why our European partners are very much concerned and doubtful about sanctions. Europeans seem to be suffering. They seem to be losing out. US companies are gaining a lot from this, and I'm sure that European companies will join such projects in Russia. Thank you.
Екатерина Николаевна Хмелева, ты с нами?
And we have another question.
Уже не все сохранили возможность так долго участвовать. Коллеги, ну, на самом деле наше время уже подошло к концу.
Okay. We actually don't have time for questions. Yes.
Времени особенно не хватило, но и, может быть, вот не имея возможности всех подключать в режиме Zoom, дискуссия через переписку, может быть, не такая уж...
So it's not really convenient to conduct a discussion in chat, but we will definitely put all the questions together. We might come up with new formats for our debates. I'm sure that next year we would have more events like this. These events that will bring together the conservationists and the corporates. We will definitely have to update our rating next year. And this year has taught us to honor our commitments despite any challenges. And finally, I would like to thank all of the speakers today, our partners. Their list is growing. They've supported us, and would like to thank TASS, the news agency TASS. Thank you for their broadcast. I'm sure that we had a big audience online. So hopefully we were able to share the outcomes of the rating to a wider audience, to a bigger number of the journalists. We will publish a report on the website, including on the subsidiaries of the Kazakhstan Gas. It's bilingual. We will also publish a press release saying that this year we also had a conference to announce the outcomes of the rating. So I wish you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. All the best. Goodbye.